Out of all of the many fan games that spawned from the Five Nights at Freddy's series, none are more iconic than Five Nights at Candy's. As one of the first ever original fan games, Five Nights at Candy's gained loads of attention for its quality in comparison to other fan games at the time.
I'm dropping it.
So much so that it ended up spawning an entire trilogy of games. However, these games have one big problem. They're just way too easy. They can't disable phones. Seriously? Rat will break my phone, I guarantee you. Smash my shit in half. I know you can. Dude, what? I can just sit here. I'm chilling. What? Are they that stupid? Y'all are like the final bosses of the series. Wow, they're actually that f***ing dumb. If you've played any of these games up to the point of reaching their max modes or final nights, you know that all of the fnac games have an exploitable strategy that you can use to make their hardest challenges really easy. But there was potential in the groundwork that was laid by Emil Mako. And if you looked at the Five Nights at Candy's games from a different light, focusing on the gameplay structure of the games rather than the actual horror aspect, there was a lot of potential here. So, Mr. Manatee, Nephirite, and Sunken Studios would go on to create Five Nights at Candy's but better. FNAC but better dramatically reworked the gameplay of all three games, added new characters, and most importantly to this video, made each game way harder. On their own, the hardest challenges in these games take hours to beat, solidly placing in the top 30 to 50 range on the FNAF Max Mode list. And for a sense of reference of how difficult some of these nights are, Post Shift 2's hardest night is ranked at 105 and 5020 is ranked all the way at 92. But what if just completing these max modes wasn't enough? A few months ago, I did a challenge known as the FNAF Lock Challenge, where I completed every single max mode from FNAF 1 to 6 in a row without dying. This challenge was one of the most mentally taxing and overall hardest challenges that I've ever attempted. So what if we took the idea of FNAF Lock and applied it to games that were way harder? And with that, the Gauntlet was born. The Gauntlet is simply that, a gauntlet of every single max mode from the FNAC but better series, starting with Blood 720 from FNAC 1's Custom Night, then Ringing Nightmare and Rat and Cat Theater from FNAC 2's Custom Night, then Rat and Cat All Challenges and Puppet Master All Challenges from FNAC 3's Custom Night. And then finally, if all of that wasn't enough, under all of the pressure from beating all of these max modes in a row, a 5-minute speedrun of Candy's Adventure, an 8-bit style minigame from FNAC 3. Now, unlike the FNAF Lock Challenge, we can't choose the order that we play these games in. So, to structure this video, I'll explain each of these max modes in their predetermined order, how they work, how to beat them, and my experiences with them throughout my journey with the Gauntlet. Starting with Five Nights at Candy's 1 and Blood 720. Even though the order of the Gauntlet is fixed, Blood 720 would still be the max mode that I would play first if I was able to change the order. Logically, we'd always want to do the hardest max mode first and leave the easiest ones for last. And while that's already half true with this predetermined order, I'm confident that to a player starting all of these games with no prior knowledge, Blood 720 would be the hardest max mode in the Gauntlet. To even begin to understand the gameplay of Blood 720, we first have to understand the changes that FNAC 1 but better makes to the original game. Then we can talk about the max mode itself. I'll do this for all of the games in this video, so don't worry about getting lost and not knowing what's happening in any of these games. In the original Five Nights at Candy's, the gameplay was very similar to FNAF 1. You had 3 doors in your office and a camera system with a night vision feature. When someone got close, you'd have to close a door on them. Unfortunately, with the exception of Blank, every animatronic in the original FNAC works the exact same way, making for a pretty dry gameplay loop of just checking on Blank and abusing the way the power drain on the doors work. However, in FNAC but better, everyone was given unique mechanics with an entirely different gameplay loop. Firstly, there are some universal changes in FNAC but better. When you're just sitting in the office or using the cameras with the night vision turned off, you won't use any power whatsoever. The doors have also been completely reworked. In the original FNAC, doors would heat up and drain more power the longer they were closed. However, because of the way the animatronic door timers worked, you could abuse the insanely fast cooldown of the doors and just leave them closed for most of the night. Now in FNAC but better, the doors will instantly drain 0.5% power whenever you initially close them, and will drain an additional 0.5% for every second that you have them closed. You'll soon realize that fnac but better reworks these games to make them all about speed.
Can I take your order?
And in FNAC 1 specifically, you'll always be closing doors to instantly open them, as animatronics that attack your doors will always instantly bonk and leave, except for 2 of them, but we'll get to them later. Now let's talk about our animatronics. Out of everyone in the game, Candy and Rat are the simplest and most unchanged from vanilla. They'll approach your doors from the left and right sides on the cameras. Once they're at either your left or right doors, a 6-second timer begins counting down. Once they've been waiting at your door for 6 seconds, the door will jam and they'll jump scare you shortly afterwards. Get used to hearing this sound, as it's one of the most infuriating sounds in this entire game. Simply closing the door while they're at it will cause them to instantly bonk and leave. Cindy has been completely reworked. She'll start on the show stage with Candy, but won't move nearly as frequently as him, choosing to wait either 24, 26, 28, or 30 seconds before leaving the show stage. Once she leaves the show stage, she becomes the immediate focus for the night. She'll move through cameras 12, 2, and then 3. Then your right door. You'll be required to look at her on the cameras for 1 full second to send her back to the show stage. If she manages to reach your door, she'll stay there for 10 full seconds, wasting loads of precious power. Chester is debatably one of the hardest characters in the entire game for new players. He essentially acts like Foxy if Foxy was smart. Chester will start in Cam 9, then move throughout the left side of the building until he reaches your left door. His entire mechanic revolves around watching him on the cameras for as much time as physically possible. Once he's moved out of his curtain in the first 10 seconds of the night, he has a 50-second move timer that begins counting down. Looking at him on the cameras will pause this move timer. So, unlike Foxy who you can just check to reset, Chester actually forces you to watch him continuously throughout the entire night. If you fail to look at him and he reaches your door, he will never leave, which will probably result in a death. Old Candy is the complete opposite of Chester, and in my opinion is the hardest character in the entire game. Where Chester requires you to watch him, Old Candy will get angry and punish you when you watch him, with the amount of total time that you've watched him on the cameras adding up when he reaches your door. For example, if you've watched him for 1 second on camera 9, then 2 more seconds on camera 8, he'll sit at your door and wait to leave for 3 full seconds. Unfortunately, Old Candy and Chester have the exact same movement path. So you'll have to know exactly when it's safe to look at Chester, and when you should be avoiding Chester's camera to not look at Old Candy. Blank works a bit differently to how he did in vanilla FNAC, though his overall mechanics are pretty similar. He starts in Cam 11 and will progress through 3 stages. However, unlike the vanilla game, he can't be countered using prediction. Here's what I mean. In the vanilla game, you would simply wait until Blank wasn't in Cam 11. If he wasn't there, you'd know he's made a mad dash for Cam 5 and is about to smash the window. So you just close that door. In But Better though, Blank actually requires you to watch him on Cam 5 in order to start his attack at the door. So if you just leave his door closed and try to predict him, he'll literally just sit there on the last frame of his attack animation. So the moment you open the window, he'll just instantly smash it.
Can I take your order?
Because Blank is now a more reaction-based character, the actual animation for his attack is a lot slower than in the vanilla game, so you'll have a lot more time to react to his attack. When he actually moves from Cam 11 to Cam 5, you have exactly 5 seconds to look in Cam 5 to start his attack before he smashes your window. Lastly, we have the GOAT, the Penguin.
Can I take your order?
The Penguin shares the same movement path as Cindy, and once he gets in your office, he'll randomly close any of the 3 doors on 10-second intervals. He can't open closed doors, so if one of your doors is closed, he'll just choose a different random door to close. And that covers all of the differences between the But Better version and Vanilla Candy's 1. Now, if I had to rank all of these animatronics on a difficulty scale, it would look something like this. Now, you might be wondering after hearing all of these mechanics, why are old Candy and Cindy so difficult? Neither of them directly end your game like Chester or Blank can, and they aren't nearly as reaction-based as Candy and Rat. Well, there's one key difference in Blood 720 that I haven't mentioned yet. The mechanics that I just covered were the mechanics of the normal 720 mode, but in Blood 720, everyone has a unique hard mode mechanic and buff. And these hard mode mechanics are what make Blood 720 70 spots higher on the max mode list compared to normal 720. Candy and Rat's hard mode changes are the least significant. Candy now has an expanded movement tree. Instead of choosing between attacking your left and right door, he can now also go in front of your window and smash your window just like Blank. Rat will now attack the doors from a camera behind. So if you see Rat in camera 7 or camera 3, treat it as if he's right at the door. Chester and